Oh, we're doing jazz hands. Okay.
Ooh. I'm just thinking about like a professional media outlet. I'm just thinking Simon Dallow starting the news like that. Ooh, I'd quite like that. I don't know why.
News fingers.
Ooh, news fingers. News stories of the day. Ooh. Hey, man. Hey, guys. Kia ora. Welcome. Ki te piha koe. Hope you're all good. Hope you're all cool. How you, man? What's going on, Joey?
I'm not too bad. I'm loving straight out of the gates. The chat has been kicking off for like 20 minutes, and then we hit the go button, and we get this.
New Zealand first ad. Let's go. Yeah, because they give us money. I wish. No, I don't wish they'd give us money. That someone would give us money.
And we were fucking giving people ACT ads the other week. So look, they got the money.
No, what that means is political parties know where the discerning voter is. And so they set up Google to ram our audience with their ads. Our audience gets polled by their adverts in an uncomfortable way. How is everyone? Everyone good? You good, man? Things rocking and rolling?
Yeah, I am very good. I pulled the trigger on something pretty substantial today.
Woohoo!
I am going to San Francisco and Denver in January. It's a trip that I've been putting off for years because of COVID and stuff like that. So, yeah, pretty substantial spending day today.
Nice. So you can bring me back. I can give you an order for some caps to come back because they won't have to pay postage. Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Now we're using our contacts, aren't we?
Yeah.
I'm gonna buy the wrong ones as a joke.
Nice. You get the ones that are just a bit too small for me and go, oh, sorry, I thought you said, sorry. Well, big old show tonight. Lots going on, including some sort of late breaking news. Not really breaking news, but, some late news. We're going to show a singular clip from the Young Leaders debate on TVNZ. We didn't live stream that, and I'll tell you why. In fact, let's just get straight to the news we put out today about our schedule for the next couple of weeks. Because I made the decision, and I'm sorry if anyone's disappointed with that, not to do the Young Leaders debate tonight, because that would have been 2 debates this week. And I just thought there's too much going on at the moment to do it both. So I gave priority to the Leaders debate on Newshub, 7 p.m. this Wednesday, sorry. And then Thursday of next week and Thursday of the following week, they're the 3 live streams that we will do, the debates that we will do. Chewy, you'll be looking forward to next week's one in particular, the multi-party debate on TVNZ. I think that's Jack.
That's going to be a shit show.
Yeah. But also, just so you know, I've tweeted this out, and I'll pin this somewhere. Pinned it. But subject to change as well. Like, I had a look at the press. The press often does debates and stuff, and they don't seem to really align with our time of day and that sort of thing. So if anything else comes up as well, we will still just kind of add to it. So make sure, especially if you're watching us on YouTube, you subscribe to the channel, and also you hit the notification bell, because then if we do go randomly live at some stage, you'll know that we are getting it. And for the debate that was on tonight, we will do some highlights tomorrow night. Okay, so we will look at it in more depth tomorrow night, what was said. The one thing about it is it's the young leaders debate, and you had Erica Stanford, seasoned, she's not a veteran, but seasoned politician. You had Chloe Swarbrick, Chewy's queen and seasoned politician. You had Brooke van der Velden, politician. I wouldn't say seasoned either. And then you had, like, and I'm trying not to be disparaging, but kind of like some university age randos for the other parties. So when it's a good debate, like the seasoned performers, the guys who have literally done this in the house, kind of dominated and took the field. And although there were some very good contributions from the other parties, especially from the Māori party, was particularly good as well
I've heard
as
the
well.
Te Pāti Māori candidate did very, very well. I also, just before we went live, can I put it up, Pat? Can I put it up now? Is it the time to put it up now?
Sure. Yes, you can, my son.
Someone's look at this. Look, have you ever been on the end of such a withering, disparaging look?
Yeah,
I would
that would be the
melt.
dictionary definition of disdain. If you looked up disdain in the dictionary, that's the photo. Any one of those, but maybe bottom left in particular, would go along with it.
It's also under what the fuck, and where have you come from? Yeah. But yes, absolutely love that.
But that bottom left, right, that kind of almost disdain and quizzical, that sort of came out when the the New Zealand First Party guy spoke, because it was, you could tell we're going to play the clip about gender in bathrooms, and I know that's the clip that's going to get the most press over the next 24 hours. So we're going to play that clip tonight. But you could just tell this is not thought out. Do you know that guy Stephen Crowder? He goes and does that change my mind, and he goes to universities and does it. The reason he goes to universities and does it is he's talking to 17 and 18-year-olds, and of course he can talk circles around them because he's a professional communicator that does it for a job. They're 18-year-old idealists who want to try and find their place in the world, and it felt a bit the same. There was this, I don't know if he was 18, 20, 22-year-old New Zealand First parroting the New Zealand First positions, but he had no thought or no anything behind it, no gravitas, no ability to kind of explain what was going on, just talking points. But talking points from a seasoned veteran can be good. This is talking points from someone with no experience, and more power to him for doing his stuff. But yeah, like Pursuit saying at one stage he was talking about people transgendering. It's like, just it didn't work. But anyway,
is this like a Get Out situation where the mind of a 80-year-old man has been put into a younger body? Is that the thing?
Maybe. I don't even think that. It was like maybe the mind of an 80-year-old man, meaning he's taken his talking points from Winston. But we'll show the clip a bit later on. I want to kick off with a couple of other things, though, as well. This is more of because we're in Dunedin, we like to celebrate good Dunedin stories. Here's a good Dunedin story for you from today. Nothing to do with politics, just a bit of fun to start off the show. Our good Dunedin story talks about a guy driving around Dunedin in a left-hand drive car, right? So he's got like an American car, left-hand drive. He goes through a breathalyzer, and the police officer doesn't realise it's a left-hand drive car, so breathalyzes the passenger.
Howdy. How are you? Good. Just had a contact.
Only in Dunedin.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
You guys had a good day?
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And there's the driver. So I just had to share that with us because
that is classic.
Dunedin success stories. We always want to share our Dunedin success stories. And there's also another one we're going to share, and I know Chewy's already seen this. And because really we're immature 9-year-old boys.
Oh, we're so immature. Brace yourself.
Adam sent this one around today.
And just the ability to get head and just the ability to get head and just the ability to
get it, girl.
And just the
That's
ability
a laugh
to
at
get
the end. So I know. Look, I'm the last person to tell people about fumbling over words. Every third word I say is slightly wrong, but Adam sent that out and tagged me and Chewy, and we're immature enough to actually want to share it with you guys because it's the big things that matter. Let's say, I haven't even brought it up here, a huge thanks to all our patrons. We have a new Patreon list up at the moment. If you want to be a part of what we do and telling those sorts of jokes which are immature and irresponsible, you can head to patreon.com/Big Hero News. Politics by 9-year-old boys. Now, since last Thursday, I think maybe on last Thursday, I mentioned a few people that joined up. Rowley joined up. Aidan joined up. Brendan and Bo joined up as well. So 4 new patrons from last week. And, there's space for you. So if you'd like to support what we do, if you like what we do and you want to be a part of it, patreon.com/Big Hairy News. Gosh, so much going on. I've got so much other news to mention as well. I have to keep going back to there and then shut that down. This is where you do a little dance. Do a little dance. Make a little love. Get down tonight. Get down tonight. This is another story that we're going to share with you. This is more like this is a news story because it's pretty important to figure out how to make voting sexy again. Wouldn't you say, Chewy? I think everyone should try and figure out how to make voting sexy again.
We've given it a damn good go.
We have, especially just, I mean, you know, the sugar bears that we put out before you guys, so we can, what do they call it? A thirst trap. Well, this is the thirst trap of political commentary. Is that right? Is that wrong? Okay, I'll shut up.
It feels wrong.
So Nadine and Huda wrote an article, Making Voting Sexy Again, Why So Many Don't Take an Election Choice. Now, you should go and read this. It's a great article. That's not why we're showing it to you, because we're immature. So this is the article. If those with the least wealth and privilege understood how much power they held collectively and exercised it at the polls, their voice could really make a difference. Now you have to wonder why Nadine decided to write this. We have a vested interest in this. My lover is walking around wearing a T-shirt that says, "If the left vote, the left wins." It makes me laugh.
That's a really good slogan.
It's a really good slogan.
Oh, we
isn't it?
have.
Maybe
we
put
did
it on
that.
our
That's
T-shirt.
it. Ooh.
It makes me laugh.
Obviously getting sex. So
I like the word. Every time I think about that word, my lover, I always think about that Northern English. What's up, my lover? Hey, my lover. Good to see you again, my lover. Anyway, it makes her laugh, not the slogan or the fact that he's wearing election merch, but the fact that I understand what it means. I remember during my first year of university, my social policy lecturer pacing back and forth in front of the whiteboard, growing increasingly agitated as she attempted to break down the difference between left and the right wings in politics. And towards the end of the article, this is what she says. The silence of those who don't vote, around 17% of the population, is loud. That silence is proportionately louder among Māori and Pacific communities. In 2020, according to the Electoral Commission data, the percentage of eligible Māori who didn't vote was 27%.
Jesus.
By comparison, 16% of non-Māori withheld their vote. Electoral data doesn't distinguish Pacific people from that total, but the 2021 Statistics NZ General Social Survey suggests the percentage of Pacific non-voters would be comparable to Māori. Why is that silence? What is that silence saying? And crucially, who benefits from it? This is the underlying question the slogan on my lover's T-shirt wants us to ponder. The inference is that wealth havers, traditionally right-wing, as a percentage of the total population are a minority. The majority, traditionally left-wing, are workers. These stereotypes can be shot apart in all kinds of ways, particularly when placed in the broader context of ecological collapse. But there is a seduction in those numbers. If those with the least wealth and privilege understood how much power they held collectively and exercised it at the polls the same way the small number of wealthy people exercise it in political donations, their voice really could make a difference. This not so clandestine knowledge needs to be worn on T-shirts and reiterated over and over again until non-voters become convinced that not only their voice matters, but that voting is indeed sexy. If the left vote, the left wins. Now, we're not actively selling those at the moment, but I have to say, I haven't taken down the actual site yet. I normally take them off. So probably, if you were interested and you wanted to go to bhnshop.nz, you could probably still get one. And you could be like Nadine's lover, her lover, oi my lover, because those shirts are I haven't even set this up to do a sell tonight, but I'm just saying. And obviously it would take a week and a half to get to you. The election's in 3 weeks. Who knows? But they're probably still there. Oh, I should have a look. I haven't even looked to set this up. We don't do the money thing very well, do we? Oh, there you go. BHNSHOP. Let's have a look. Are they still up? Because I'm pretty sure I haven't taken them down. If anyone wants to join on board, yep, look, they're still up. They're still up. They're there. We're not doing any specials, not doing any free posts, but if you want to, we're making politics sexy again. I shouldn't do that finger guns because that's very unsexy. They're still there and I haven't taken them down. And if someone ordered one, I would get it printed for you. So not that that's a pitch tonight. We're not doing specials. We're not doing free delivery. We did that for that 3-week period that we promised, but they are still up. And if you want to join along with Nadine's lover, then they're there. Knock yourself out. What are your thoughts, Chewy? The only downside about Nadine's argument, there wasn't a direct link to our
or a picture.
Or a picture. I will leave that to
I like 27% of eligible Māori not voting. That's devastating. And you know what? I kind of get it as well.
Yeah.
Why would you vote for someone that doesn't represent you?
Fuck, imagine if they
And
all
that's the
voted for the
idea with
Māori
the
Party.
representative democracy, right? Is that there traditionally hasn't been any reason to. Because they're like, what? These people don't represent me.
Yeah.
They just use me as a political football, and they just talk about me in the third person.
Yeah.
And that's why I think, you know, parties like Te Pāti Māori are so important. And there needs to be more Māori MPs. Like, there needs to be people taking that message to Parliament. It's all well and good us sitting here, two white guys in the South Island, fucking holding court, but people need to vote for it. But then you see, like, the reaction that Te Pāti Māori's billboards up north are getting, the vile state of things at the moment.
Yeah.
You can kind of understand why people just go, fuck, I'm not putting myself forward for that. And then it's just self-fulfilling. You haven't got people in Parliament arguing against the bullshit.
Yep. No,
So yeah, get inspired, get fucking voting. Talk, like, just help people get there. Like in that story, the examples that they had of people, you know, saying, you know, there's no point in voting. They're all the same. They always lie. So why be involved? That, like, I've heard that from people, and I'm like, yeah, it's really hard to bridge that gap. And it's like, well, you either get in the game, it's happening, and you're in it whether you do or not.
Yep.
So you might as well. You have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
It is a couple of ticks in a box, and you carry on with your day, and hopefully things improve.
I think most of us would probably agree there's no perfect party either. And I don't like the idea. I don't like the idea of the lesser of two evils. Implies both sides are evil. But I heard someone say, and I'm gonna butcher the quote a little bit, something like, if you don't want to vote for yourself, think what voting for someone else would be like. Like, so I sometimes think about, like, to be honest, like, I'm not wealthy. In fact, I'd be in the bottom 10 or 20% of income earners, I would suspect. But I'm okay. And I think whether Labor gets in or National gets in, my life won't change that much. But there are some other people who are, in fact, I was talking to someone in the weekend, and I said, the people who will do best out of this election are either the very rich or the very, very poor. The well-off and those who are already on third base by birth, or the most vulnerable. So even if I'm like, well, you know, what's it going to, I'm obviously I'm engaged, but if I'm the kind of person that's like, well, it makes no difference to me, think about your neighbor. Think about the person across the road. Think about your mum or your dad if they're retirees. Think about, you know, what your kids are growing up into, if that's what it is, and vote for someone else. Vote for what you think is going to do. Politically was just waiting for my Green supporter ACT to be. I did the vote compass over the weekend, and I came out pretty even to Pāti Māori and Green Party. Although I'm not very good at those, I had a surprisingly high result from ACT. On my party, it was like 30%. I thought it would be lower, but that's, I think, only because I'm a bit of a free speech person as well. The problem with those kinds of, they're not binary because you have like 4 options, but those things is they're very much either, if you believe in free speech, then you sit here, or if you believe in, you know, transgender issues, then you sit here. Whereas, you know, the real world is a little bit more weighted than that in real life. But yeah, Te Pāti Māori and Greens were like 70+ percentile.
Yeah. I mean, this is the problem that I've had, right? And I've spoken about this before, for so long considering myself a Labor supporter who votes Green tactically,
right?
And at what point do you just go, well, I've voted Green in every election bar one?
You're a Green.
At what point do you just say that you're a Green voter, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of that is they're not the perfect party for me. You know, and a lot of it is prejudice. You know, I don't want to be one of those tree-hugging, hippy-dippy, you know, the crystals charging on the sideboard people.
Yeah.
But then you look at it and I go, well, you know, I like trees. I like nature. I like clean rivers. I like the less fortunate amongst our society being looked after a bit better than they are. And exactly as you said, I'm comfortable enough that whichever way this goes, it's not going to have a dramatic effect on my life, apart from one way will make me dramatically angrier. And that's because I always try to vote for we, not just for me.
Yeah.
You know, and when you look at the stats and you say, look, the most disadvantaged amongst us don't feel engaged in this political process and don't vote, well, fucking vote for them. You know, it's when you look at the numbers and you go, these people that go, well, my one vote doesn't matter. Yeah, but there's enough of you there to swing an election every single time.
I think it's perfect time.
Please vote.
I think it's perfect time to get into the numbers. Actually, I was going to do something else first, but the setup you've just given us makes me think, let's talk numbers. All right. Newshub poll from tonight. Let's have a look how it went.
Yes, the Kingmaker is back. Winston Peters has clawed his way past the threshold, and Luxon's path to...
Well, he's not back for 3 weeks yet. The projections, he might be back, you know, but I don't like this certainty in language.
Power lies in his hands. Chris Hipkins has failed to turn the red ship around. It is still sinking 26.5%, only down 0.3. Anything but up is a catastrophe in the 20s. Nationals had the wind knocked out of its sails to 39.1%, down 1.8. And all ACT's acting up has crashed.
There you go. Look at ACT though.
Their vote a mighty tumble down to the single digits, 8.8%, down 1.3. The Greens picking up.
So this is what this means by looking at this, right? And if you look, the margin of error is 3.1%. The spread is about 7%. I'm not trying to fill anyone with false hope, right? It is an uphill struggle for the left, without question. It's the rights to lose right now, but it's not an insurmountable hill right now. I'm not going to even give you a statistical chances here. I'm being very clear. It's the rights to lose, but a couple more polls down. If Labor makes it to 30, who knows? Who knows? You could end up with a situation where Winston really does have balance of power that could put either side in. Now, I know what we think that means, but Winston is someone who always does what's best for Winston. So, yeah, I think we'll put it this way. You're not going to see, I don't believe you'll see Labor, the Greens and the Māori Party get enough now to get there by themselves. Was that fair, you think, Chewy? I think that's fair.
Maybe
not.
I don't know.
Okay. All right.
I don't know.
I don't. But that's
I don't
my
know
gut.
about any of this, Pat. This is
all right.
This is like no one's going to romp home. This is going to be fucking close for everyone.
Right. Let's keep looking.
Labor loses 14.2%, up 1.9.
Now that's dramatic. 5.5% between ACT and the Greens. That's a dramatic shift. They've been level peaking for a long time.
And hold on to your hats. New Zealand First resurrected 5.2% across the line. Winston Peters is back. Te Pāti Māori's losing momentum, falling down to...
Now, look, let me remind us of this. The margin of error is 3.1. So that could be anywhere from about 3.6 or 3.7 to about 6.5. So, Winston Peters is back. No. The poll, he's within margin of error of missing by quite a long way, and he's within margin of error of being very comfortable. So let's just not exaggerate this language too much, eh?
Te Pāti Māori's losing momentum, falling down to 2.2, top hot on their tails, 1.9, and New Conservatives 1.1. These three need an electorate seat to make it in. Now, this is where Peters' power really shows. Even with the Greens bringing in 18 MPs, Labor's pitiful 33, along with Te Pāti Māori's 3, assuming they hold their electorate, only get the left bloc to 54. You need 61, and Winston won't go there. Over on the right, though, Nationals 49 and ACT's 11 only get them to 60. One shy, they need New Zealand First 6. And as the reality of that dawns on Christopher Luxon today, he made his intentions clear.
So the other thing that came out today, obviously Luxon has done this. And has realised that they are very likely not to get there with Winston. So after months of questioning, he's finally had to kowtow. And it puts him in a very awkward position. I'll explain why shortly.
We'll pick up the phone to Peters if he absolutely has to. Bouncing up and down in big blue machinery, not even a pole drop could wipe the grin off his face.
I'm in my happy place.
Christopher Luxon seizing a dream.
No, this is just every boy's dream to jump into a big tractor like this.
But this boy's dream is actually jumping behind the
Cosplay.
wheel of the country, and that dream is just within reach. Though it's going to be a stretch.
For New Zealanders watching this, I want them to understand there's a lot at stake here. There's an awful lot at risk. This will be a close election.
You're right.
Relentlessly
I
on
agree.
message.
They should definitely go blue. Yeah, preferably two blues would be good.
And today, rolling out a new one.
My strong preference is to form a strong and stable two-party coalition government between National and ACT.
Making his intentions clear, he will work with Winston, but he doesn't want to.
However, if New Zealand First is returned to Parliament,
I really dislike that it's a produced video. That they've said no comment, no comment, no comment, no comment. Then when they come out, it's a produced video because it feels contrived. I mean, that's their plan. Fair enough, they can have their own plan. But there's something weird about them having to make a produced video to say, well, maybe, Winston, maybe.
and I need to pick up the phone to Mr Peters to keep Labour and the coalition of chaos out, I will make that call.
And he better put Peters on speed dial. On this poll, he's back in the saddle.
And this is not our first rodeo.
Rodeo. What are you talking about? So, a couple of things, right? Speaking of ACT and their numbers, a couple of interesting, good-looking thirst traps last week had this thing to say about ACT. And I reckon ACT is going to not do as well. I think that they're not going to get as good a result on election day as they have been polling the last 6 weeks. I think they'll sit around where they are and they may even drop a little bit. I really do. I really think the Greens will be by far and away the third biggest party, and I think it'll be ACT. And I think I just get the sense that they're not going. They've fired all their bullets that are going to get them traction, and so now it's like they're at the top of the hill. So the only way is down. They may hold where they are now or go down. I don't think they're going to increase that much. And that was after that conversation that they had with Sean Plunkett, and that conversation had to lead David Seymour to basically being, honest about what he thinks of cookers, for want of a better word, and what he had to think. And that I remember we said this last week. We said that might just drive a couple of percentage points away from him. Now something else has happened tonight. I can't give you all the information on this yet because I haven't seen it. But that guy who runs that Christian Family First group, Bob McCoskrie, runs a Monday night live stream, funnily enough, like all the other right-wing lunatics. And they had David Seymour on tonight. And I haven't watched the actual thing yet, but I want to show you the end of that conversation and how it finished up. This is how it finished up with, now these guys they're fully about, transgender issues. They're fully about, these are the guys that still talk about we should be allowed to smack our kids, right? That's still one of their absolute top priorities. And now it's like, just don't let girls be boys, and toilets, and that, that's what they're all about. I haven't seen the interview yet, but I caught the end of it. And this was David Seymour wrapping up the conversation with Bob McCoskrie.
You were supposed to be, I think 20 minutes, and I've got someone calling at 5:30. So I'm going to have to love you.
David, really appreciate your time and all the best for the campaign.
Thank you,
Yeah,
David.
I'm just sorry that so much of what you said wasn't true. It made for a much less pleasant discussion.
Seemed to go both ways, David. All the best for the campaign. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
It really did.
Cheers.
See you later.
That audience that they've got, he hasn't given them the answers they want. And like we've said all the way through, there's this dilemma from some of these right-wing politicians that they're pitching for these votes. They're pitching for that conspiracy theorist. They're pitching for the anti-trans vote. They're pitching for the anti-vax aid. They're pitching for the anti-mandate votes. That's what they've got. He's been actively going after that for a year. And then when they go on a show, I haven't seen the show yet, but I know the substance of it. I used to work with Bob McCoskrie. I know the substance of it. It's all going to be about bathrooms and gender and all that kind of stuff. That's what the whole conversation is going to be about. When he gets called to actually then have to speak the language of these people they've been courting, which is what we saw last week on Plunkett's show, he won't do it, and I think that's one of the main reasons we said he's going to be impacted in the polls. And what we're seeing in the very first poll after is a pretty big impact, Joey.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's oh God, everybody's tried to spread themselves up amongst the most unreliable groups. Oh, I really think this is going to be. It's both interesting and terrifying, this election. Like I was talking with some of my workmates today, and they're on the younger side of things, and they're just so angry, and they're just so frustrated with the options and the issues that are being talked about that just do not resonate with them at all. It's not things that are important to them. It's not the things that they're worried about. If you're in your 20s, nobody's fucking talking to you.
Yep. Yep.
Like they're talking to us in our 40s and stuff like that. And it's like, fuck that. No, don't talk to me. Talk to them.
Yeah. One of the things we saw with Chloe tonight, when she was talking to someone in the audience, she was like, I don't want to tell you what to do. I want you to tell me what you need. And that's the sort of thing, you know, depending on who you're talking to. I think Mark's got it, though. ACT vote's probably going to New Zealand first because Winnie's not shy. Yep. And I think when Winston's understood that he's pitching for that vote, and that means he's going to have to say some stuff that he doesn't agree with. Like, I don't care what you tell me about Winston, he doesn't agree with it. He knows how to play the game, and he's playing the game. Now, speaking of the game, Chewy, something else we've been saying for the last couple of months is that, and I hedge it a little bit because I can't remember what the results were in 2020 or 2017, I mean, but typically you need to be preferred Prime Minister to win an election. Let's just get back to these poll numbers with Newshub.
Are any glimmers of good luck in there for Labor?
If those party vote numbers weren't gutting enough for Labor, the public is pouring salt in the wound. For the first time in 6 years, their leader is not the most popular. Christopher Luxon is on 24%, up 1.5. Chris Hipkins trailing way back 19.1%, down 3.4. Luxon has 5 points on him. The foes who must become friends, David Seymour and Winston Peters, now level pegging on 6.1 and 6 respectively. Chloe Swarbrick is gaining on 4.4. But as political reporter Amelia Wade explains, although Chris Hipkins' popularity is plummeting, the public wants him to stick it out for the election.
Yeah. All right. We've got so much to talk about tonight. We don't need to go into the sausage sizzle and the obligatory photo of Chippy eating a fucking sausage roll. So yes, look, a couple of things. Strong uphill battle. It's the rights to lose without question, I would think. Well, I'm going to say without question. You can question it. But you could also equally say 6 weeks ago, Luxon saying he was going to win and he wasn't preferred Prime Minister. So does that mean Chippy can take that line? He can say we're still going to win, even though he's not preferred Prime Minister in one poll. Let's be fair at the moment. But yeah, that's sort of the summation of the whole thing. I do have some footage as well from News Talk ZB with actually maybe we'll play this. Here's a little one more thing. Actually, is there anything you want to pick up on before we do that, Chewy? I'll play a couple of minutes from News Talk ZB because it was Hosking talking to Seymour this morning about the coalition of chaos coming to the right.
I had a thought and now it is gone.
Well, how about you keep thinking about that, see if it comes back, and let's just have a listen to a couple of minutes of everybody's favourite right-wing alt-right commentator Mike Hosking. We don't actually feature him very often, if ever, on this show. By talking to David Seymour this morning after we found out that Luxon had to give Seymour a call last night to tell him what the announcement was going to be today. Just so you know, David, I'm going to be announcing tomorrow that I love Winnie. But I love you differently, David. But I do love him. I love you. He's no challenge to you. I still love you. I love you just the same.
What time did Chris ring you last night?
Oh, I don't keep a diary that close, but sometime late last night.
And was it a surprise?
Not really, because what Chris has just said is exactly what I've been saying for weeks, if not months now. Of course, you deal with the parliament that the people elect. If you didn't, you wouldn't respect democracy. However, New Zealand's got some pretty serious challenges to overcome, and our strong preference is a tight working relationship with the NACT so that we're ready for real change on day one. I think what this development really tells you is that if you want the government to change and the change to be real, then trusting ACT with your party vote is the most effective way to do that.
Should he have ruled Peters in or out earlier?
Look, I'm not into commentating. I mean, people can look at what I've done, and probably I would say that, that was the right position. The NACT are now taking a mirror image position of ACT. We welcome that. And if you're going to start commentating on the timing, I guess it shows that ACT often gets things right, and that's why I think we can make a valuable contribution to a future government if people choose to put us there.
There you go. So not all that happy. Now, here's the commentary. What this has done is this has given Winston all of the power, and it's taken all of the power away from Seymour. Because what they've just done is they've now said actively, we are united, we are together. National and ACT can be seen as one party now. I know they're not literally one party, but Luxon has committed to Seymour, Seymour has committed to Luxon, and they've said that their preference is just to be those two. So they're in together. You know, there was all that kind of toing and froing a few weeks ago about Seymour saying, maybe I'll sit across the benches, maybe I'll give them supply and not confidence, you know, yada, yada, yada. But now that they've made the statement, they are now one. What does that mean? If they can't get there, who has all the power? And that's Winston Peters. So they've actually made themselves look really weak, and they've given, should there be the need for him, that's a big caveat, all the power to Winston Peters, who may well be in Kingmaker position again and might decide to go fishing again for a few weeks before any decision gets made, because he's, as I've said it before, it's a technical term, I think it might come from the Latin, he's a vindictive old bastard. Shall we?
God damn it, New Zealand. Do you not learn fucking lessons? Just shut the door on Winston. It'll be his last election cycle. That's fine. We just fucking carry on. Every time we put him in this position, it is chaos. Yes, he played out for our side once recently. We wouldn't have had Jacinda. We wouldn't have had the same COVID response without him.
In fairness, I think he did it with Helen Clark as well. I think he was on Helen's team for a bit as well. So it's not just, but yeah, recently.
But you just don't know. You don't know where he's going to go. He's painted himself into a corner with the right wing this time. Who knows whether he's going to fucking stick with that or not? Like, his own voters should know that, right? Wow, I'm voting for Winston because fucking God knows what happens after that. Well,
he has called Labor racist, and he said he wouldn't go with them. But I'm sorry, I don't believe that at all. I don't believe if he gets the wrong deal from National. Like, what will he want? He'll want a pretty plum job. I mean, he may want to be Deputy Prime Minister again. He'll want a pretty plum job, and if he doesn't get it, and he has, like, let's say it's 59 or even 60 to National and ACT, and it's 55 to Labour or the Greens to Pāti Māori, and he's got 6. If he doesn't get what he wants, Winston First is the other name for New Zealand First. I think it's unlikely, but I don't think it's impossible that he could go back with it.
If they okay, so if National go, yep, all right, we're going to have to go cap in hand to Peters now, right? First of all, you're going to have David Seymour being a very unhappy little boy, and while that does bring me a little bit of joy, it's not enough. It's not enough joy at all. I like that attack line from Luxon just turns around and comes straight back at him like the world's most vindictive boomerang, doesn't it? Coalition of chaos. He's been parroting that for 6 fucking months after stealing it out of a loose binder last time he went to the UK.
Well, and in fairness to Hosking told, I wouldn't play it, but Hosking said the same thing to Seymour. He said, "Who's the bigger coalition?" And Seymour said something about I wrote it down. I can't read my handwriting, but he said something about basically which would be a more solid coalition. And if you had a look at that debate last week, to Pāti Māori and the Greens versus those other two, I know who would be a partnership that I think would be more likely to get on and get things done. Not the two that are arguing to each other that both want to be number 2 behind Luxon, that both think they have the right to be number 2 behind Luxon, versus the other side who just want to see what's best for the country. Maybe I'm being naive, but
I mean, here we are talking about the right? What about on the left? What's going on at Labour at the moment? What's going on in Chippy's office? What lessons are they learning? What decisions are they going to make to try and turn this around? You got another leaders debate coming up after the last one. Pretty much everyone went, fuck, they're the same person and this is super boring.
Yeah.
Like, Chippy's going to have to come off the fucking top rope with a steel chair straight out of the gates and go, you know what? Full communism.
Wednesday.
That's our standpoint.
Wednesday, 7 p.m. Be here.
He's got to do something.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
100%.
got to be something substantial to try and stop the rot. And like, if I was there, if I was hammering out an email after the show, as an example, to my local Labour candidate and CC in Chippy's office, it's just like, get your fucking head in the game. Just realize you're a workers' party. Look at the polls. Look at the work that your own party has done that says this is what people want. This is what your supporters want. This is the true things that fucking matter. And put it front and center. And just look, stop coming up with policy because the other team might criticize you for it. They're going to criticize you anyway. So you might as well not half-ass it. Do the full ass, Chippy. All of the ass, get it in the game.
How about Kira's thoughts there? I foresee a coalition between Labour, Greens, Te Pāti Māori and Top. That's just my crystal ball view from Kira. Interesting. I mean, I think there's no polling which shows Top's going to get there, and the mistake that Top's made is actually not, and we all know this, I've said it 10 times before, 100 times before, is not actually coming out and stating where they're going to go after the election. We had a meetup on Saturday morning at 11 o'clock, Patreon meetup. And I won't say who it was, but the conversation that we had in the Patreon meetup, someone said to me that I had influenced their position on Top. Now, I don't give my opinion out there to necessarily try and change your mind. I just give you my position. And that idea about sort of saying, we could go one or the other, or we'll go no one. I'm like, well, I can't vote for someone who might support the party I don't want to see in. I just can't. It doesn't matter how much I like the leader and actually like some of their policies. But if you're possibly going to lift up the side I don't want it, I can't vote for you, because what if I voted for you and you lifted up the side that I didn't want in because they needed you? I couldn't do it.
Yeah. You can't straddle that line. You just look. You can say I've given enough indication for you to be able to work it out, but if people are asking, then you haven't.
And they could have done a handshake in Ilam and got the Labour Party person on the list, and then all the Labour Party voters to vote for RAF, and he could have got in and he could have dragged one or two people. At 1.2%, he definitely dragged one more in with him. Could have been two people. But, they're not rolling that way. Hey, I want to roll on. Is there anything else you desperately want to say about that?
Yes, I'd say, look, as much as we're down on it, I think you'll be the first to say if he does take out Ireland, that is an absolute barnstormer result.
Yeah, for sure. I want him on the phone on that night. And he knows. Like, the other thing about Raf, remember, is we've had him on twice, and we've said all these things to him, and his response to that is, that's fair enough. Because it is. That's how politics works. That's fair enough. So this is nothing. There's no malice, and there's no anger. Like I said, I remember talking about a policy idea that I had in the early 2000s that I wrote a blog piece about, to do with young people given the opportunity for giving like public service for a year in return for a degree. And someone goes, that's a top policy. And I had a look, and it's basically a top policy. So, I'm not anti them. I'm not anti them at all. Right. Let's have a look. Speaking of being anti, let's have a look at one clip from the Young Leaders debate from tonight. It is the conversation that they had with primarily the New Zealand First, which is this dude here, New Zealand First candidate, when they were asking about their education policies. They're basically saying, no point for me to really say it, New Zealand First has no education policies out other than the penis patrol. They don't use those words, obviously. That's the only thing you've put out, and that was kind of where the conversation went.
New Zealand First, your only education policy is removing gender ideology from the curriculum. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, it's a really, really important thing, because we've been inundated by really concerned parents that usually are big party kind of voters. And they're sick and tired of the backwards and forwards kind of do nothing about it that they see. And there are very,
fuck does that even mean?
Nothing.
Complex, sexual, inappropriate kind of discussions happening at school.
That's Chloe.
Well,
Name one.
Okay, the Free Speech Union just said yesterday, that primary school kids now are going to be disciplined if they don't affirm other primary school kids' genders. Okay,
not true. Okay, not true.
Not.
But that's not what the Free Speech Union even said. The Free Speech Union has pointed out, has made an allegation that one primary school in East Auckland has said this, and the Free Speech Union has used the word discipline. Now, you might not be surprised, Chewie, but I've already been in touch with the principal of that school, and I've asked for them to come on and clear it up, because my suspicions are The Free Speech Union is exaggerating, putting their own terminology in there, is trying to make a deal out of it. Because as we all know from now, the Free Speech Union is just a psyop for right-wing talking points. Because yes, they might support drag queens and libraries once, but then the other 99 things they support are all right-wing talking points, and that's all they're about. So what he's actually said is not what the Free Speech Union said. They've pointed to one school and they've made an allegation, right? They haven't said in schools now. So that I just want to point out that A, that's wrong, and B, I'll feed you baby birds. I'm onto that one too.
This is madness. So
and it's not
civics is very important, right? And we need to go back to know who we are as a country and where we fit in the world and what we stand for.
But
and one of
that's
the
not
things
your
we
policy.
stand for is free speech.
Or respect.
Exactly, respect for free speech, which you don't have, right? And cancel culture. We can't shut people up because it hurts our feelings. Everyone has a right to speak.
I think you're talking about consequences, bro.
No.
Bro, she called him bro.
No, I'm not talking about consequences. But we want education, not indoctrination, right? We want to invest. We see young people as an investment in this country. I mean, our own leader, Winston Peters, came from poverty, right, up north. He went all the way to Deputy Prime Minister and Acting Prime Minister.
All right, we are going to stay on the topic of gender. This year, the disinformation...
So this is the host, yeah? This is actually a TVNZ journalist. I'm just pointing that out, not out of disrespect with her, but she asked a pretty straight-up question that doesn't sound like the kind of question you'd have a journalist ask.
Project reported a surge in online hate towards rainbow communities that was so extreme, it was described as genocidal. Most of it has been directed at the trans community, while a lot of the political conversation has been focused on bathrooms. Lee, your party leader, Winston Peters, wants a new law banning anyone from accessing a public bathroom or changing room designed for the opposite sex use. According to the Williams Institute, trans people are 4 times more likely than cisgender people to be victims of violent crime, and trans and non-binary teenagers face a higher risk of sexual assault in schools that prevent them from using bathrooms consistent with their gender identity, according to another study. So where is your evidence that this is a safety issue?
Well, there is evidence of, girls. I mean, we've got Lorraine Moller, one of the great Olympians of New Zealand, who's come out and endorsed New Zealand first.
Just before he goes, just so you know, he doesn't understand what the word evidence means. So I'm just telling you, he doesn't understand what evidence means.
Because of our stance on speaking up for women, standing up for women's rights, women's spaces. So what's happening is, and I didn't know this until I heard Lorraine tell me this, she said she's championed her whole life to get women into sports. Now you've got biological men participating in female sports, blowing them away in their changing spaces. And what it's doing is it's discouraging women from actually participating now into sports.
Though, on the topic of public bathrooms,
yes.
Where is your evidence?
There's studies all over. We have people.
Like
we
where?
have people basically saying to us, "Hey, I was assaulted in a bathroom by a biological male. This is wrong." And you have biological men getting changed in women's spaces, and it's scaring women.
So you have anecdotal evidence, but you don't have.
I don't have the statistics in front of you right now, but it's a true thing. It's a real thing. We're not on another planet. There are a lot of people concerned with this, not just in New Zealand, all over the world. And we want to stand up for women. We want to stand up for women's spaces. We want to make sure everyone's safe.
With your bathroom policy, particularly at schools, how are you going to enforce it? Are you going to get teachers to, do genital checks at the door, or...?
What a stupid question. No, I think...
then
how? That's ridiculous. And, making a mockery out of this and women's spaces is just uncalled for. And the pendulum's gone so far to the radical left, you think this is normal. This is not normal. All we're doing is sticking up for women.
Yes.
If you want a new law, how are you going to enforce it? In schools?
Look, bathrooms are already unisex, male and female, right? We're just going to say, hey, we're not going to accept this because there are people on the outliers that aren't just, really nice people. They do this for a reason.
All right, Chloe, what's your response to that?
Here we go.
If you want to talk about the actual stats and the actual evidence and the actual data, what we know full well is that our trans and non-binary and gender minority whānau are disproportionately represented in mental ill health, addiction and suicide statistics.
Yes, and we don't want to encourage.
And mate, It's driven by rhetoric from the likes of your party.
No, it's not.
And I expect
It's driven by rhetoric by your party, which is encouraging it in young children. That's why we want to remove it from schools.
You are.
More kids now
you are.
are
Uno
transgendering
reverso.
or
Very good.
transitioning than ever before.
And the gays came out the closet only like 40-odd years ago or something. Just take a second.
There's actually a lot of lesbians and a lot to gays that are actually against.
Are you talking on behalf of the women and the lesbos now? Just let me have a moment, please.
No. I was invited to talk at a speaker
No, I was
event.
just invited to
When
talk.
everybody talks at once, it feels too hectic. So, Chloe, if you can finish your point, and then I know, Hannah, that you had your hand up, so we'll go to you after. Chloe.
Well, speaking on behalf of the woke lesbos, what I do have to say is that ultimately, well, no, I did.
Yes, you did.
Because yes, exactly, and the rhetoric and the fear-mongering behind the likes of what you and your party are putting forward are harming people in our communities because it is not evidence-based. And ultimately, I think that there is a responsibility for political leaders to turn down the temperature on this and to take responsibility for the consequences of their rhetoric, which are hurting people in our communities.
Little kids don't need to be exposed to
pay
it.
attention to the actual evidence here.
That is
Listen
the
to the
evidence.
academics.
I'm going to smash the buzzer. If we talk over each other, I'm
need the ability
genuinely
to
going
agree
to...
to disagree. I think it's important that people,
I'm not going to deny people's existence, I'm sorry.
All right,
that's the bottom line.
There you go. That'll be the end of it for that guy. Clip from tonight. So there you go. There's your queen. Your thoughts on your queen?
God damn. If ever I did something so bad that has Chloe going, mate, pause.
Yeah.
I would just want the earth to open up and swallow me whole because I fucked up real bad.
He's got dry mouth, says Kyrie.
He's got dry everything. Like the man's so dry. Dry, dusty balls because he's been hanging out with New Zealand First too fucking long. Oh, he's like he came from like the New Zealand conservative subreddit, which is the most toxic place I've ever seen.
Here's something I thought just today watching it again now. And this is kind of the Winston Peters rhetoric issue. Maybe that guy does believe all of that. Like maybe that, I don't know his name, sorry. I'm not particularly interested in learning his name.
I don't think we'll have to, Pat.
But maybe he believes that. Like that. Don't they have a candidate in Tauranga or something that believes in all the conspiracy, anti-vax, this sort of stuff? Because what he's been spouting, he will not only be drawing voters to him of that ilk, but potentially candidates and stuff as well. So whilst I do not believe that Winston is in that camp of personal belief, he is drawing people to him. That might be that guy's genuine belief. I was a bit disparaging before saying he's just spouting off the rhetoric. Maybe he does believe it because that's who will be coming towards New Zealand First now, rather than Liz Gunn's party, or rather than Democracy New Zealand, or rather than Brian Tamaki's party. If they want to have their vote counted, they might be going towards Winston. So maybe he does believe it, which is actually on some level even scarier.
Yeah, I want to comment as well on just people that are not ready for the heat that they're going to attract, right? So that was their one education policy was about bathrooms. Would you not be prepared? Would you not be across? Would you not have something more than anecdotal fucking bullshit that you can't back up? When you're going to come in front of Chloe and have a position that is bad, you will be told. And if you push back against some bullshit numbers, she's got the actual numbers.
Well, that's what I was going to say as well.
Christ, I've never seen someone just
you better come with proper receipts.
Out.
You better come with proper receipts if you're going to play Let's Compare the Research with Chloe Swarbrick. That's all I'd say.
Actually, this is the comment. Homie's too used to his right-wing echo chambers.
Maybe
100%. If you only exist in your own echo chamber, and right-wing, left-wing, whatever, right? If you just talk to people that are going to agree with you, then you don't have to be across this shit, right? You just have people going, right on, man. Like this is why you need to pierce your bubble every now and then. But yeah, for a potential political operator to, like, you heard the applause in that room, man. Like, read the room. The room's fucking telling you.
Well,
you are
that'd be tough for that position from that political party though, because the room is a young person's one. They're all going to be university students and stuff there. So he would know anyone with a contrary opinion would come up against that. I agree with you about reading the room, but that I don't think also that means political parties play to the room if they believe the complete opposite either. So yeah, no, but ill prepared, and like I said, the bro and the mate from a sitting MP, probably of those younger MPs, the most effective one as well. She's a machine, just amazing. So
I've heard. Do you have any clips of the Te Pāti Māori candidate?
I do, but we're not going to look at them tonight. Tomorrow night we'll come back and we'll revise over a bit more of that conversation, because actually I think Hannah, the Te Pāti Māori, spoke after that interaction, and she was brilliant as well. Just
I've heard a couple of comments that she was very impressive in this debate, so I look forward to seeing them.
Yep. And if you're interested in what we just showed you, like Liam has asked what debate was that clip from the Young Leaders debate, we'll do another review on it tomorrow night. It's on TV. It was on TVNZ this evening, or TVNZ online.
I think
this
I've got
evening.
the clip somewhere actually. The link.
Yep. And we'll review a couple of more interactions tomorrow night. Hannah, I don't know Hannah like where she sits and where she's on the list or anything, but very, very good as well, the response to that particular conversation. Right, now we're going to move on from that debate to another debate that happened over the weekend to do with the Finance Minister and the Shadow Finance Minister, talking finance. Q&A spent a whole show talking finance. Some illuminating conversations came from it. And let's just get into it. I've got several clips here. I may not play them all, but let's just get into the debate between Nicola, Willis and Grant Robertson. They started the conversation about when unknown costs hit a government. What do you do when unknown costs hit a government? That wasn't necessarily the question, but that's the theme of what they're talking about. Like, for example, I don't know, COVID, or the worst natural disaster the country's ever seen with cyclones in Auckland. How does a government get held accountable for their spending and their budget the year before when unknown things happen? That's kind of the theme of the first part of this conversation. Hang on. I've got it muted. Such a nice setup, and I had it muted. I've got to find my spot now. I just started a few seconds earlier. Here we go.
Jack, but as I've said to you,
which ones is
the ones at the beginning in 2018, and then in 2021 or 22 we were under what we said we would be. But Jack, the point is those allowances are a means to an end. You have to respond to the things that are in front of you. If there's a cyclone, you have to respond to that. That's what we did. Also, when you look at the end result, we ended up with debt significantly under where it was forecast to be at the budget policy statement. We ended up with unemployment under where it was meant to be at the budget policy statement. What we've done is take a balanced approach. Now, it's all very well to say, no, we've set that allowance, we're going to stick to it no matter what. Does that mean we don't pay teachers? Does that mean we don't pay nurses? Because they are the decisions you actually have to make. It's not a theoretical exercise governing.
It echoes that conversation we had last week about how the opposition is kind of like the step parent, that they can say, why would you do this? And when you're the parent that has to look after the household budget and you have to go, actually, the car broke down this week, so no, we're not going away this weekend for the school holidays. We can't. The step parent just goes, let's go away anyway, to try and win the love of the children. The opposition party can just say, you overspent. You said you're going to spend this and you spent more. And Grant Robertson has to play grown up and go, yeah, there was this thing called a cyclone. And if we had to stick to our budgets, nurses and teachers wouldn't have been paid. Is that where you want to go? They have to play it like it's an actuality rather than a theoretical game played by the opposition.
Actually have to govern for the circumstances that are there. And when you look at hang on a second, let me finish this. When you look across the board at what the government's done, at the indicators across the economy, we have done well compared to the rest of the world. Doesn't stop it being hard for individuals and households.
Correct.
But we have spent in a careful and balanced way to support New Zealanders whilst also keeping indicators like debt lower than most other countries in the world.
So let's talk about 2022, because you can't blame COVID for 2022.
No one pushed back on this. You can't blame COVID for 2022. 2022 was 12 months ago. That means it was the end of 2021. We were still having restrictions and 7-day isolations, and no one pushed back on this. And I thought about it when I heard her say it, and I went, hang on. In my head, I kind of went, oh yeah, that's this year, but that was last year. Surely we can put some restrictions attribute some of the expenses to COVID in 2022, considering 2022 is technically starts one day after 2021, which was the thick of it. I'm not saying it's the only answer, but to say you can't blame it, surely a small part of it at least, if nothing else.
That year was the year our inflation rate hit 7.6%. It was also the year you decided to go on the biggest budget spend up in New Zealand's history. You added $38 billion over the 4-year period to the economy, including a $6 billion operating allowance. You completely blew it out. And let's look at what was in that budget. There was money for Three Waters, Te Pukenga reform, Te Whatu Ora reform. There was money to renovate our IRD
Health
offices
reforms aren't important.
in the middle of an inflation.
This is where we play the fair card. I mean, what she's saying on a basic level is fair. Should that, like, let's use the same analogy, your car's just broken down, so you have to spend money on it. Do you still go on that holiday? Well, maybe you just put it off by 12 months. It's fair what she's saying, at least on a top line situation, unless it's affordable, which is where Grant gets back to as well.
Water system's
if you
not
let me
important.
finish, because I let you finish, in the middle of an inflation crisis, you decided to do the biggest spending budget in New Zealand history. And then what did we see happen? Inflation persisted, interest rates went higher, and your cost of living payment that you did, when actually what you should have been doing
Which
was
had nothing to
reducing
do with
tax,
your spending.
that went to French backpackers.
But Jack,
it was the wrong response to an inflationary
that
crisis.
kind of response is typical of the way Nicola does this. About 1.5%, so 98.5% of the cost of living payment went to New Zealanders living here earning less than $70,000. But if I come back to the beginning of what Nicola said, as a country, we've had to face a number of hurdles. At the same time, we do want our health system to be better. We do want our Three Waters to be better.
But Grant, it's not. People are waiting longer for surgery. They're waiting longer in the emergency room.
Those investments needed to be made.
Longer for a doctor. Don't tell us the health system's
here's the last point. On your show, Jack, Christopher Luxon, when he was asked at that 2022 budget, would he be spending the same amount of money as Labor? He said yes.
No, he said he would reduce tax,
which is effectively the same thing. Which is effectively the same thing.
And we all remember that clip. That was the one where Jack Tame actually got him to admit it would be as inflationary as their spending. So there you go, Chewy. It's a pretty good. I think that's a pretty good bit of a balance there. We've got the Minister of Finance saying, there's unexpected costs. We're very good compared to the rest of the world. We came underneath the projected negative outcomes, even though there was negative outcomes. And we've got Nicola Willis saying, but you spent too much in 2022. Maybe both things can be true.
Yeah, look, I there was one that I was waiting for, right? Because whether you agree or disagree with what Labor have done financially since COVID, you can't say that Robertson doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Right? And as we've seen in the past week, Nicola is very much just about vibes. There's bad vibes. Grant Robertson's fault. Like, we've dealt with a generational pandemic. And the absolute unwillingness to accept that inflation is a global problem.
Yeah.
It's certainly a problem for a country that is isolated and revolves around import and export to the degree that we do. I would like to see some intellectual honesty. Like, you can criticize a bunch of things.
What does that word mean?
I know, right? But you can still criticize certain aspects of what Labor have done and the decisions that they've made and that sort of thing. But you cannot ignore the reasons why they did them. And then you look at everything that's involved in where we are at the moment. And I do believe in the fullness of time, if Labor are able to continue what they're doing, things are on the upswing. You look at other countries and you go, cool, so you sacrificed a big portion of your population for the fucking economy, and you're a couple of percentage points away from where we are anyway. That sounds to me like we made the right choice.
Well, here's a comment from Doom. Even my cooker boss knows National would have ruined the manufacturing industry if they were in during COVID. And look, when we say, and a few comments in the chat have said, stop saying since COVID it's still here. I guess we're talking about the the governmental setup around COVID, like payments and you know, money they were putting into COVID, not since the virus was here, obviously, which is still here. But Chewy, you talked about if we were with National now. Next part of this conversation, which we'll get back to now, this is called a segue, is them talking about, because there's been promises made by the Labor government about when we'll get back into surplus. And of course, according to National, Labor, all bad. So that would mean National would get back into surplus sooner. Because if Labor's doing
this is a trap.
All wrong, then surely National do better money quicker.
Nicola, question for you then, because National still hasn't released a fiscal plan.
Neither has Labor, Jack.
And the whataboutism always lose the argument. Yeah, but neither have they. What she's saying is, yes, we have not done it. She left that part of the sentence out, and then she says, but neither have they. But she just left out that's correct, we have not put that out, right? The only response, that's the silent, it's like a silent P in pneumonia. There's a silent, yes, you're correct, Jack, we haven't put that out at the start of that sentence. And then she says, but neither have they.
Let's be fair here.
Voting
Labor
overseas
have
begins.
No.
Well, at least we've got a prefu.
But what they have done is they have added hundreds of millions of dollars of campaign promises on top of that prefu.
So
we're going to talk about those promises.
Every dollar is costed within the allowances, Nicola.
Nicola.
In 2017, when I was in your position, I brought out a fiscal plan. Then we had the prefu. Then we updated it.
Nicola, will National...
Did you hear the response for a second time? But where is yours now? We don't have to if you don't. Show me yours, I'll show you mine.
Return to surplus faster than Labor?
Well, it is a very, very difficult set of books that Grant Robertson has delivered us. And I make this prediction.
Okay, so no. Give us an answer, please.
Squirrel.
But let me finish the answer, because this is very important.
Do that?
If I can finish my answer, you will
You
learn some
interrupted me in the
information.
last
There'll be plenty of time to interrupt.
So here's the thing. We will certainly deliver a surplus earlier than Labor would have, but Labor are pretending they're going to... No, let me finish. But Labor
We're going to get to that.
If I can't finish my answer, you're not going to...
You interrupted me in my last
We're going to get to that, yeah.
But Labor are expecting you to believe that they will deliver a surplus in 2027. That's based on Grant, for the first time in his entire time as a finance minister, sticking to his operating allowances. He's not going to do that. He's already delayed surplus 3 times.
Okay,
He's
so I'm
not
talking
gonna
about
hit
your
surplus
plans.
in 2027.
Will National commit to returning to surplus before 2027?
I'm not making that commitment today. What I'm making the commitment is we will hit surplus earlier than Labor will, because we will stick to
Oh, fuck no, Jack.
Just no.
Because you're not going to hit it in
Okay.
2027.
Nicola, can you please be clear with us?
I see. I do not believe it, and
Okay.
no New Zealander should, because you have never spent the amount you
so
say
will
you
will a national
Treasury
government...
warned you in your own documents that you spend more than you say you will.
You say you're going to hit a surplus before us. That means you will have to cut even deeper into public services than you have already said you're going to. Yes, it does. There's no other way. Or what else are you going to do?
Okay. Can I just say, on behalf of the viewer, it's great that we're having a robust conversation, but we actually need to be able to make sure we can distinguish your comments over each other. Nicola, be totally clear here.
Yeah.
Will National commit to returning to surplus in the year 2027?
Yes. But
Thank
not earlier than that.
Okay.
So that was
wow.
It's you know, I don't know. It's one of those things. If you're being fair, you might say, I don't like it when they try and nail people down, but I do like it when they call people. So if you're saying these guys aren't doing it, we'll do it better, you should be able to at least better what they're saying. What she's actually saying is, we will get to surplus before them, but they wouldn't get to surplus if they had the chance by 2027. That's what she's saying. And I guess that becomes whether it's believable or not. And we can't really make that call, Chewy.
Look, I can make a call. Nicola Willis is finance minister is Ruth Richardson 2.0.
Oh.
It's going to be fucking devastating.
Cash registers at A&E departments.
I still think that Ruth Richardson has left psychic damage to this country that we apparently we've forgotten. But that was just an embarrassing display. Embarrassing. And look, I'm going to call this in the chat. Ian, that's a bad Ian. I'm going to come around to your house. I'm going to squirt you with a hose. You knock that shit off.
But hang on. You know, just I
know where you live, Pat, for a start.
There's a little part of me. She's, yeah. Anyway, let's move on, shall we? Let's not get into that conversation because, of course, you had to expect the conversation to come up around modelling their tax cuts. And this has already been a meme that's going around with Jack Tame saying, is that it? That comes from this part of the conversation. Are they going to finally show us the back room data? Maybe they've got rid of all their back room people. Maybe that's the reason. The back end stuff to how they're going to model these tax cuts. Oh, come on.
The modelling behind your foreign buyers revenue projection. We don't need to spend 10 minutes on that today. We're at the point, though, where I think there's more than credibility on the line with this. It's actually integrity on the line with this. Does detailed revenue modelling beyond the tax plan that you have released actually exist?
Thank you for asking this question, because this is very important. There has been misinformation about this. Here is the table of costings for our tax plan, which sets out every element of our tax plan and its cost on an annual basis. Here is the review.
Now, just so we're clear, what we want to see is the stuff behind the single line. Like, how did you get to that table? Where is the workings for that table? That's what's being asked for, not the table. The workings as to how you got to that table. That's actually what people want to see.
Of our tax plan done by external expert economists who agree that the costings we have put together are credible and fair. Here is the legal advice we released underpinning our costings. Here is a summary of the methodology we used to cost our foreign buyers policy. Now, by contrast, I want you to look at this. This
it's
is
the
the
sound
costing
of the paper
for Labour's
for me.
GST policy. And nowhere on this, by the way, does it model an increase in fruit and vegetables being
So actually
eaten.
that's already built in, so
and
that's
nowhere on this
misinformation.
is there an economist who says, as your ads claim, that the full GST reduction will be passed on to consumers.
Nicola,
Not an economist has said
Nicola,
that.
we'll talk about Labour's plans in just a moment. Will you release the numbers behind the modelling? That's the question.
Here,
I mean,
on this
you
piece
haven't.
of paper are the numbers
Look,
behind the
one line.
modelling. We are modelling 1,600 to 1,700
One line.
foreign
It's not
homes
modelling.
selling to foreign buyers at an average
Wait.
price of 2.9 million with a 15% tax, which will generate around 715
Do you have
million
anything more than
in
that?
year one. Yes, I do. I have a full methodology which I've detailed here.
Is that that's it?
This is what I have explained to you. Of course, there are spreadsheets.
Okay.
Holy shit!
So we'll talk about Grant in a moment.
One line.
I don't like the resignation questions. I know they come up, but given you have already pledged to resign if you don't deliver tax cuts, and given ACT has now pledged to peg back their tax cuts, and New Zealand First has indicated it doesn't support them, do you stand by that pledge?
I stand by my pledge. The next national government will deliver tax reduction to working people that they are owed and that they are due.
And will you give the same assurance if you fail to raise the revenue that you have projected?
We have put together a very conservative plan. No, Jack, it's very important because you've asked me questions about this and I've never been able to answer it in full, and it's important that I do.
I've just asked you a really clear question, so can you please give me a really clear answer? Will you give the same assurance
if you look at the way we have put our tax plan together, we have built in buffers. So we have taken conservative estimates for the costs of elements of our tax plan. We have also ensured that in year one, we generate more than $500 million more than is needed to deliver tax reduction. And then we have put this in the context of a fiscal plan, which you will see shortly, which also builds in buffers. So I am confident.
Which you'll see shortly.
It's about early for the election, isn't it?
Early voting starts on Monday. You'll probably see it the day after the election. I think that's 3 weeks will be considered shortly.
Confident that we have put this together in a way that means we will not need to borrow for tax cuts and we will not need to make reductions in any frontline
Nicola, that
services.
doesn't answer the question I just asked you, which is, would you give the same assurance if you don't get the revenue you have projected?
No, and can I tell you why? Because the revenue that we get depends on the economic growth conditions and therefore how much tax people are paying across a range of things.
Hang on, because now she's saying it depends on the conditions, which is exactly the criticism of the Labour Party having to overspend, underspend, borrow more, depending on the situation and the position that the country is in. So now she's saying, I won't give a guarantee because we don't know if there is unforeseen things, but she's holding National to account for having to come up with more money or borrow more because of unforeseen things. It kind of feels a bit too like they're trying to have their cake and eat it too. I don't know if you feel like that, but it kind of feels like that to me. And now, Grant, you go.
It feels to me like a creeping terror of this person might be finance minister. That's terrifying to me.
Grant
because
Robertson.
this is not the chat of someone who knows the numbers. It's not even the chat of someone who's a good salesperson. Like this, she hasn't sold shit. She doesn't know the answers to it. It's all based on flim flam, and she can't back it up because there's nothing behind it. It's so obvious.
Grant Robertson has, I think, what is the best and most logical comeback to all this word salad.
It depends on the economic conditions that we're in. But I will be delivering tax reduction.
So, Jack, Nicola's tax plan relies on selling $20 billion of land, housing to offshore buyers.
That's it.
That is not credible. Most economists who have looked at the plan say it's not credible. All of this is just words, Jack.
No.
Hang on, Nicola. I let you go on that.
Chance, yeah.
All of this is just words. It's an inflationary policy. Even Cameron Bagri, who's Nicola's Nationals friend, says it's inflationary. It'll push up the price of housing, and it's simply not credible. They will have to, if Nicola's going to deliver on her commitments she's just made, they will have to make even deeper cuts into public services. This policy doesn't add up. It's not even clear who it applies to. Is it residents or is it tax residents? Which is it?
Our policy.
Which is it?
Our policy.
Answer that question.
Our policy applies to foreign buyers of homes who currently are banned from buying homes. Under our policy, they will pay a 50%.
Which John Key says when they tried to do it, you couldn't do legally. Remember that? John Key has already said you can't do what she said that they're going to do. So, of course, Grant says...
So a New Zealander who lives overseas for more than 325 days, how are you going to make that work?
They will be exempt.
How?
Because we have very clear advice that we can make that work within our existing tax and trade
I don't believe that is true.
We have advice from the former Deputy Commissioner of the IRD who has worked in the practical world of tax.
Now, what that means is she said, someone told us. I mean, that's that answer. Someone told us. How? Because they asked for, again, the methodology as to how you're going to carve out those people. And she said, because we've had advice. Someone told us.
Someone told us we could, and then we asked someone else, and they reckoned it was pretty legal. So we're just going to fucking give it a go, eh? That's the Kiwi way. We're going to number 8 wire our way to surplus.
We're going to keep rolling because there's another little part of the conversation about tax that I want to play. It's only 60 seconds or so, but the conversation came up: are tax cuts inflationary? That's this part of the conversation.
Very quickly. You want to give, what, $16 billion in tax cuts, and I asked you a few weeks ago if your tax cut would be inflationary. You said it wouldn't be because Kiwis would choose not to spend it. Quote, I asked you, if New Zealanders all choose not to spend the money, then it won't be inflationary? That's the theory, right? You said yes.
So very important from that statement. She agreed that if everybody saved it, it wouldn't be inflationary because money wouldn't be going back into the economy, right? So that was what was said 2 or 3 weeks ago. We played that clip. So if everyone who got tax back saved it, it would not be inflationary. That was the agreement. She changes her tone now.
We've polled it. These are the results. So 44% of respondents said they would spend that tax cut on everyday essentials. 7% said they would spend it on something they wouldn't normally buy. So more than half say they will spend that tax cut. Does that make it inflationary?
I think you will recall that what I said is I think some people will save it, and that poll completely confirms my view.
That's not my question.
44% will say, no, I do not think it'll be inflationary. And I'll tell you why. I brought this report with me too.
And this is what you call being hoisted by one's own petard. When you give evidence that you say says it's not inflationary, but the evidence says it's not as inflationary, and she actually reads it out to say how this means it's not inflationary. Listen closely.
Treasury advised, Grant, in 2022 that tax cuts are less inflationary than government spending.
So less inflationary. So still inflationary, but not as inflationary. This is her defence as to why tax cuts are not inflationary.
Is their advice to him. And the reason for that is because government spending creates more inflation because with tax reduction, some people will use it to pay down their mortgage. And believe you me,
they said less
inflationary,
right? Less inflationary, but they didn't say it's not inflationary.
They said that and recent work has found that government investment and consumption tends to have the largest effects on domestic demand and interest rate.
But they're not
while
saying it's
transfers
not.
and tax changes have less effect. Well, the alternative here, Jack, let's be really clear about the universe we're living in.
The alternative is reining in fiscal spending and not giving a tax.
That is not the alternative, because every dollar of this tax plan is
really
a dollar
clear.
that Grant would otherwise spend on another huge government program that may or may not deliver the outcomes
over the
he
next
promises.
4 years, for Nicola's tax plan to work, $20 billion has to get pumped in to the economy from foreign buyers. That will definitely be
I think we've talked about it enough. We want to focus.
There you go. And that's a very good point as well. And I don't think that's a point that many people have made. You know, forget the tax cuts actually, you know, the more money that we've got going into the economy, rising inflation. What about the $5 billion a year for the next 4 years, which currently is not in our economy, that'll be driven into our economy if they get their way? How can that not be inflationary, Chewy?
I don't know. I've lost my fucking mind. I've gone crazy. I've disappeared through a black hole of doom. Okay, one thing I want to highlight here, right, is remember how career politician bad, right? Have I lost you, Pat?
Yeah, no, I'm actually talking to someone else.
All right, career politician bad, right?
Yep.
You want a doer, someone who knows what they're in, right? Nicola Willis has no background in finance at all. No degree, no qualification.
No.
And it's so important, right? Because the economy is, quote unquote, fucked. Everything's ruined. The world's disappearing. We're going to be buying soup with wheelbarrows full of loose cash any day now, according to these guys. And the person that they've sent in writing to save the day is someone with an English literature qualification and no background in finance, no background in the economy, no background in numbers. It's what is going on?
It's everything. It's the upside down. We're living in the upside down. You know, but you know what? But you know what the response is going to be. The response from the right's going to be, well, you know, how's it any different from someone who used to work in a fish and chip shop being prime minister? So, you know, that's what the response is going to be. But I agree with you. It's like I mean, Grant Robertson. What was Grant Robertson before he was in politics? Can we say? I don't know. That's why I'm asking. Has he been involved in finance his whole life? Is he going to be the same?
Well, that's fair enough.
But hang on, let me just say this. I don't even think necessarily it's about their background. It's about, are they competent today? And the numbers that they're putting out, even the $20 billion or the $5 billion a year, it's not practical. It's not competent. It's not, you know, so there's big holes in them. Look, I mean, I just think that they need to, I respect that ACT has changed their policy after seeing Prefu. I don't understand why National won't. I wonder if some people are kind of going, oh, you know, maybe they're stretching themselves, but maybe that's why we'll go to ACT. I don't think people are jumping between National and Labour, but then again, ACT's dropping in the polls as well. Maybe that's why we're seeing New Zealand First grow in the polls, because people are, the shine's coming off that bold old head of his, and it's heading towards that wrinkly skin with the powdered spine of Winston Peters, perhaps.
So Grant Robertson had his first job as a paperboy at 16. Sorry, I'll skip on a little bit here.
Okay, thanks.
He has Bachelor of Arts with honours in political science.
Okay.
Political studies.
All right.
His honours dissertation studied the restructuring of the New Zealand University Students Association in the 1980s. Nicola Willis graduates first class honours degree in English Lit from Victoria, postgraduate diploma in journalism.
So she should be able to tell a story. It's not doing on that front
you'd think
either.
so. Oh, she may have also served me at Holy Bagels in Wellington.
Hey, let's play one more clip because we're coming to the end of the show. I do want to play this last clip. I was going to skip it, but I've just looked at my notes and I've realised it's actually quite an important point in this that we need to get out to people. They started talking about
90-minute show.
There was a poll done. This is going to be 90 minutes because this clip's about 4 minutes. There was a poll done by TVNZ, and they basically asked. I remember doing this as a talkback topic actually. They basically asked the question, you know, are you prepared to, you know, losing your job versus tax cuts? Like if people have to lose their job for these tax cuts, how do you sit on that? I'm butchering the question. Let's just get to the actual pre-roll, and I'll make sure it's not on mute this time. And you can have a listen and a look for yourself. There's one very important point that I want you guys to know about this, and it's to do with the cuts that National want to see come in.
Philosophical question. Grant, to what extent is it the government's job to reshape our export economy?
It's certainly our job to support New Zealand to lift the value of our exports. It's not the job of the Finance Minister or anyone else in government to say to somebody, you must work in this sector. But what we can do is add value.
Done it again, haven't I? That's the wrong clip. Right. Let's start that again. Here we go. Lovely, lovely build-up. If you watch this clip tomorrow, you'll be seeing none of this because I'll cut this little bit out and it'll just look seamless when it's a proper clip. Here we go.
Segment, I want to talk about trade-offs, and we're going to start off with a poll question. So we asked 1,000 eligible voters, do you support or oppose lowering government spending if it means some people end up losing their jobs?
Yeah.
So 38% support, 42% oppose, 20% don't know. Now, Nicola, Labor has announced $8 billion in cuts to planned spending over the next 4 years. In addition to that, National says it'll make almost $2.5 billion in cuts to fund the tax cuts. To be clear, how many public sector jobs would National cut?
We have not set a number for that because we do not have a target for that. What we want to do is we will say to chief executives across 24 government agencies we've identified, we are concerned with how much your departmental, that's the cost of running yourselves, spending has increased, up 62% over the last few years. We think that's out of proportion to the services that are being delivered to New Zealanders. We would like you to find 6.5% worth of savings on average. Go away, have a look for that, come back to us with your recommendations. Here's the rules. Protect frontline services, stop things that are wasteful, stop things that aren't delivering enough impact for everyday New Zealanders.
So it's $600 million a year in savings you want, divided by, say, just roughly salaries of $90,000 a year. I mean, that would be 6,500 redundancies at that level. Can you give us a ballpark figure as to the kind of expectation you have? Are we talking...
I do not have a ballpark figure, and the reason for that is I genuinely want to work with our public servants, to work with them to identify where the savings should be made. Here's some of the things that they will consider. Is it necessary, for example, that this year the IRD has embarked on a $30 million renovation project? Is it necessary to run lots and lots of task forces and working groups? Is it necessary to do the amount of report writing that they're doing? Are they...
Because what you want in a government agency is fewer reports, you know, just like verbalise things and just try and remember them for the following week. Fewer reports is probably a good thing to do, good way to save money.
Offices that are actually affordable. Are there vacancies that should not be filled? And Grant's now going to tell you, this is the Goldilocks.
Why don't you just let me say it?
Grant can say it.
So 6.5% needs to be cut from agencies like the Department of Conservation or Customs. If you cut 6.5% from the department...
What about for departments like Ministry of Health? What about 6.5% from there? What about like education? 6.5% from there.
Department of Conservation, that will mean our conservation estate will be worse off. There is no way of cutting that much money out of a budget without it affecting the front line. Customs. If people are worried about queues at the border now, National takes 6.5% out of that. That will affect frontline services. It's simply not possible. We went in and we said 1 to 2% in those agencies because we do believe, and when times are tough and when we are trying to bring the level of government spending down, we do need to find efficiencies. But at 6.5%, that is deep cuts to agencies.
This is what
it won't be possible to be able to deliver what Nicola says she will. And again, another reason why the tax cuts can't happen.
This is what I call the Grant Robertson Goldilocks theory, which is the amount that Grant Robertson wants to reduce from government agencies.
Is there a difference between 1 and 2% and 6%?
$4 billion over the next 4 years is perfect.
1 or 2%.
Even though he's actually targeting education and agencies, I'm not even including, that's going to be perfect and not a single thing's going to be affected.
No,
but if we do
quite a bit less than 6%.
But if we do 594 million more, then that's going to be swinging cuts.
More than double.
No, that's not true, Grant. So you actually understand numbers. You've proposed $1 billion in cuts a year. We're proposing 594.
We proposed
that is not double.
504.
Your maths should be better than
we
that.
have provided
and actually
504 million. No, don't put misinformation out. 504 million, and you're putting 594 on top of that.
Continue, Nicola.
Well, my point is this. after years of telling us every dollar of government spending was absolutely necessary, you admitted 6 weeks before an election that actually you could afford to cut billions out, and now you're telling me that I can't find more savings without affecting frontline services. And frankly, I think that lacks credibility.
So just to take the Department of Conservation example, how will you deliver a great walk, which is National Party's policy, while simultaneously cutting DOC's budget?
Good question.
Well, there's two things we want to do.
I've got an answer for that.
The first
You
is,
just give
in
the
terms
tourists
of DOC, we will be asking them
machete.
to find savings in their backroom departmental functions. So the numbers I'm using are different from Grant's because he's looking at the entire
'Cause there's a
baseline,
debate up.
which includes their frontline services.
So what does backroom for DOC say?
Well, that will be their policy advisors, their communications advisors, their PR
So those are
advisors.
jobs, though,
their
right?
managers.
Those are jobs.
Well, what
We
they
don't want to tell New Zealanders anything about the conservation of the state. I presume Nicola probably means things like predator-free will be gone because
that
that
is
is
just
the
not
kind.
true, Grant. Grant stood next to me.
You cannot
Grant has
find
stood-
those kinds of
Grant has stood
savings
next to me.
without deep cuts.
And
It's just not possible.
Grant has stood next to me in debates in Wellington Central, where I have proudly talked about National's commitment to the predator-free 2050 goal, which was our
You're
goal.
going to have to
So
find
this
the
is
money
just-
somewhere.
This is kind of desperate stuff.
Okay.
Because
No,
what's
it's
actually
not.
gone on
You
here...
have to explain what gets cut.
What's actually gone on here, Grant, is you have built up the public service backroom functions at a massive rate, out of
not.
proportion to the services you are delivering.
No,
and now
it's
you're
not.
at the 11th hour admitting you need to reduce it, but you're trying to also
Nicola,
claim...
Grant,
we needed those people as we went through COVID.
Okay, that's enough.
We needed to do the work to do the reforms.
Thank you. That's
So, very, very quickly, I'm a bit confused because government departments, does that include education? Does that include Ministry of Health? But if it doesn't, or if it does, as an example, let me show you. If it does, because they said 6.5% across all departments, if it's 6.5% across the health budget, Department of Health, that currently has an operating budget of $20.5 billion. That would be cutting $1.3 billion. That's 6.5%. That means education would be about $1 billion and Social Security would be about $2.5 billion. Now, if it's not, if it's just what they believe to be departments, DOC, the budget running for DOC is currently $710 million per annum. So 6.5, well, 10% would be 71 million. Half of that's going to be 36 million. So it's going to be, say, $40 million out of DOC. So they're going to be cutting $40 million out of DOC. I can guarantee you that what she's just described as backroom people, even if it was 100 people, 200 people that she's just described, they need to find 40 billion. Let me do this super quick. Let's say it's 100 people times 100,000. That gets you to about 10 million. So that gets you to about 10 million. So that's going to be 4 times that. So that's 400 staff would be backroom. Is it going to be 400 staff, as she's just discovered, policy writers and for the Department of Conversation? I don't think so. So Grant's right. Of course, $40 million out of their budget is going to impact frontline staff. Of course, it's going to impact people who are working on the front. And if not directly, i.e. the number of people out there on the Great Walks being reduced, the people in the back room who now aren't there to service the people at the front room will be reduced. So the process of getting information and doing things is going to be slowed dramatically. Yes, exactly right, Rob.
It's this. I mean, does anything she say there about where these savings are, does that sound like a serious, well-researched policy? Or does that sound like something that's been dreamed up on the backbencher's napkin after work? Like, it doesn't sound like a serious policy. It doesn't sound researched. It doesn't seem like they've done the work. And she has been fucking gleeful about turfing people out of these jobs before Christmas. Like, as soon as possible. Gleeful.
And don't be fooled by the shell game, right? The shell game goes like this. When they want to sell something as a positive, they'll say, we're putting $800 million into this. When they know something is a negative and they don't want you to know, they'll use percentages. It's only a 3% reduction. It's only a 6.5% reduction. What, you mean 40 million people or maybe 400 staff from Department of Conservation? So that's what they do. That's what political parties do. National's particularly good at it. If they want to highlight money they're spending in a good way, they'll use the dollar figure. If they want to diminish the amount they're cutting, they'll use the percentage figure. Because 6.5% doesn't sound anything like $40 million or $50 million out of the Department of Conservation.
Pat, in your opinion, do you think the team at IRD that did that work on that report that said, look, here's the percentage of New Zealanders that are hiding their wealth and paying half the tax rate that everybody else is.
Yep.
Do you think they would be in a back room somewhere?
Maybe so.
Maybe they should be on a front line with fucking pitchforks to weaponize the IRD. But yeah, like this idea, like, I know what this policy is, right? It's appealing to people that think there's this massive bureaucracy like we had in the 80s, right? Just people sitting in offices, flying on, career for life, just shuffling the odd paper and nothing really happens. It's this perception of what government departments are like that has not been true for 40 years. But they know it plays, and they know that there's people that are going, yeah, of course, government's full of waste. And then it's going to be, nothing gets approved. Your passport takes 4 weeks. There's huge lines at the airports. They're only checking every 15 containers of stock coming into the country.
Yep.
Biosecurity goes out the window, like the last time that they were in the driver's seat. It's just, like, God, learn the lesson. But I think even if you were a supporter of National and you watched that debate, do you think that that's a serious finance minister in waiting? Do you think that's someone across her portfolio? Because it fucking doesn't feel like it.
But then you've also got, of course, David Seymour, Winston Peters, who might actually end up being it, which might be her out for not having to resign when the numbers don't come out, perhaps. Hey, look, these are all good conversations, which will go on for the next 3 weeks. Only 3 weeks to go, folks. And tomorrow night we will continue them at 9 p.m. We will have a look some more at that young leaders debate, and there'll be some other bits and bobs. Remember, this week on Wednesday, we'll be here at 7 p.m. for the leaders debate off Newshub. Another chance for us to say huge thanks to our patrons. So lovely to have you guys on board. Thank you very much for being a part of what we do. Patreon.com/Big Hearing News. If you've enjoyed the show tonight, you like what we do, and you want to be a part of what we do, you want to help us make the show, patreon.com/Big Hearing News. And again, it's a big thanks to Rowley, to Bo, to Brendan, and to Aidan, who have all become patrons in the last, since Thursday's show through till today. So that's it. We're done for today. I appreciate you all very much. Have you got anything else you want to tangent with at the end there? I can see some crazy photo down the bottom. Is that something you want to share?
I do. I've seen this, and now you have to.
Oh God.
Hats off to whoever's done this. This is art.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have a lot of time here on the show for art appreciation.
What was his name?
So I thought
was his name? Was it Krang?
Krang.
Krang. Yeah,
We're just gonna fucking soak this in. Look at that. Look at the thighs on that.
Yeah.
That's and dear listeners, if you're wondering, yes, those nipples are pierced. That's the attention to detail that we need in our political debate. And I tell you what, if you like this image, if this image is going to haunt your dreams like it is mine, smash that like button, hit the subscribe, and inflict this on other people in your life.
All right, team. All the best. Thanks for being with us tonight. Appreciate your time. Lovely to be back with you, and we'll see you tomorrow night from 9 p.m. tomorrow night. Remember, Wednesday night we're going to be early, but tomorrow night 9 p.m. normal time for another edition of Big Hearing News. Thanks for being with us tonight. Hooroo.
Cheers, fam.